Thanks for joining us. This is North Coast Perspectives. I'm James Faulk. As we enter the third month of the COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic, we begin to see the cascading problems caused not just by the disease itself, but also our reactions to the disease, by the disruptions to our economy and to our educational and criminal justice systems. We see this in a number of cherished businesses and organizations that are suddenly struggling or closing their doors for good. As we pivot to adapt to the challenges presented by COVID, we've exposed a number of weakened flanks that are taking hits we barely anticipated. Chaos begets chaos, and the losses mount. Officials tell us Humboldt County is fine for now, but we're one big exposure event away from a runaway infection where the testing and tracing systems fail under the weight of exponential growth. This has already been demonstrated, though, in microcosm. As we ramp up our efforts to deal with rising infection numbers, 21 cases just this past week, 165 in total, by testing more and more people, a bottleneck is formed for both the tests and the reagents needed to make those tests work. As a result, it takes weeks to get an appointment, then additional weeks to get the results. This amounts to an unfortunate lag in our knowledge and our ability to respond. So yes, it becomes more important than ever for people to be mindful of what they do, who they contact, and how they interact with the world around them. And yet, in the end, we may be reaching a point where the only realistic course of action is to hang on hard and batten down for the dangerous ride that's just beginning. Now, the interview. We are joined tonight by Ben Brown, CEO of Redwood Acres Fairgrounds in Eureka. We talk about a cherished institution teetering on the brink. Redwood Acres now fits that description, and Ben is here to help us understand the situation. Welcome, Ben.
Thank you for having me on, James.
No problem. Thank you for joining us. So can we first get the background? What is the situation financially at Redwood Acres, and how did we get here?
Well, as it stands now, if nothing changes in terms of income and expenditures, Redwood Acres will run out of money in December. Now, of course, through this pandemic, every day brings new challenges. It's hard to plan out from week to week, let alone 6 months from now. It is a fluid situation. We are actively looking for new revenue streams, reducing our expenditures, deferring loans, those types of things. And a bit of good news is that the Paycheck Protection Program modified their rules, and now organizations like Redwood Acres are now eligible for that funding. And we did just receive word that we will be getting funding, which is going to push out our timeline about 2 to 3 months. So that's a little breathing room. It is a fluid situation, like I said, and there are lots of moving parts, but nonetheless, it's a very scary time. The state government has requested a $54 billion package from the federal government. If the federal government does award that, there will be money in there for fairgrounds. So we're all hoping that will come through. We should know about October if that does happen. But all city, county, state governments are really feeling the pinch right now. And Redwood Acres is a state institution, though we are required to be financially self-sufficient. It's a situation I am not familiar with. I began this role in February 1st, and it's been trial by fire. And so with the COVID testing, the alternative care site having moved in, you know, all bets are off as far as events. And neither of those facilities are paying any type of rent. They are paying their utilities, but Redwood Acres sees no income from those.
So to dive into that a little bit more, basically you guys are functioning right now as an alternative site for healthcare if it comes down to it, and also you're doing the testing for OptumServe, you know, providing a location for them as well, but neither of those operations provide any revenue for you, is that right?
That is correct. Fairgrounds fall under California Department of Food and Agriculture, and there is a deal worked out between the Office of Emergency Services and CDFA that allows them free access to fairgrounds when emergencies strike. Of course, we want to play a role in the community during these difficult times. We're honored to be part of what we hope is the solution to getting past this pandemic. But nonetheless, given the fact that we do need to be financially self-sufficient, that's a major blow. Of course, all major events have been canceled. That triggered us canceling our fair. We get that no major events would have been able to happen regardless, but there's a number of smaller groups that utilize our facility throughout the week. Everything from dog training, roller derby does practices, and those could be smaller practices. Hockey, I mean, the facility is well used. It's somebody's in there nearly 7 days a week, and that's not even given the big events. So it's been a major blow. We have been told that if one patient is administered into the alternative care site, that all the rest of the events will be canceled. The stock car races, motocross, any loud event, and those are the last events really we have on the books. So if one patient gets administered, those events are off. Though I have learned that if once a patient is administered, we may be eligible for some sort of FEMA reimbursement.
Yeah. I mean, that's sort of the question. I mean, if you guys are functioning as both the overflow medical site and the emergency location for various emergency operations, but you're not self-supporting, if you go under, I mean, what is the county going to do? They're going to have to keep you afloat at least long enough to be able to use you if they need you. Isn't that correct?
Well, that's right. It's a struggle, and nobody really has any good answers. Who can prepare for a pandemic, I guess, or something of this magnitude?
Of course.
But nonetheless, there is not a lot of guidance. Nearly every single fairground in the state is being utilized for some sort of either COVID testing or housing, all sorts of different ACS sites. And here we're getting into the fire season, and fairgrounds are heavily utilized for evacuation points or staging areas for CAL FIRE. So fairgrounds really play a critical role in helping protect California. Our hope is that the community will hear our call. Redwood Acres is working with the entire 77 fairgrounds to help get our communities to advocate to our local government representatives about the situation and to see if there can't be some sort of relief in the works.
So essentially, I mean, like, if the community members want to help Redwood Acres, it's not a matter of donations or anything, it's a matter of reaching out to elected officials and advocating for your continued support. Is that right?
Well, both are true. In 2011, the state pulled all funding from fairgrounds. So there was about $250,000 that would annually be given to Redwood Acres to run operations. At that time, it was, it was a fair, a couple of events, but it was pretty low impact. But the state decided to pull their funding, and Redwood Acres had to get innovative. And that's when they brought in businesses. They started the business incubator program, really started ramping up events. The horse stalls, that has always been a historic feature of Redwood Acres. Equestrian and fairground history are hand in hand. But Redwood Acres was forced to get innovative, as were all fairgrounds. But Redwood Acres was really a case study where the model that we currently have with really diversified income streams is pretty unique. Most fairgrounds at least have one business on site. They do some functions, but Redwood Acres, we have 14 businesses. We have a very active RV park, horse stall storage. And then, boy, the community really utilizes Redwood Acres for hosting events. Of course, we host events. So while Redwood Acres was already in a difficult situation going into this pandemic, we now stand as one of the better situated fairgrounds because we have such a diversified income stream. Yeah. But nonetheless, a third of our revenue does come from events and venue rentals. So, $350,000 essentially disappeared overnight. Wow. And, we're in a 82-year-old facility. You can imagine the overhead costs. I mean, the constantly needs attention, that facility, just to keep it up and going. It's a big operation, 54 acres. The number of stakeholders in the community is really awesome. It's just fantastic how I kind of visualize it like a crazy quilt, how everybody has some little aspect that they love Redwood Acres. But Redwood Acres acts as this community umbrella where everybody does come together. They may have their own little niche aspect that they really adhere to, but Redwood Acres is a vital part of our community in many, many ways, of course, not to mention the emergency response that we're able to provide.
Yeah. Now, one thing I heard you mentioning before is that there is an event going on this weekend, not for spectators, but something that people can maybe tune into on their computers. Can you describe that for us a little bit?
Yeah, and we're excited about this. You know, this is the largest event that the county has authorized since the pandemic has hit. So we do have a stock car race tomorrow. It's a virtual stock car race, meaning that there's no spectators allowed. And I really need to stress that. People, absolutely, we want everybody to tap in. It's going to be live streamed on Facebook through the Redwood Acres Raceway page. But the only people racing are in the stands are the racers and their pit crews. Nobody's going to be in the grandstands. It's a shell of what we were hoping to have, but nonetheless, I think it's fantastic for the community. I know all the racers are really excited, and we're going to play this tight. We need to make sure everybody follows the rules. Our hope is that this is going to open up doors to more races in the future, and further loosening where maybe we can get some people in the stands who can once again enjoy some live entertainment. So that's tomorrow. That begins at 3 p.m. Going to end right around 7, 8 o'clock. So make sure to tap in to Facebook, or you can look at the Redwood Acres Raceway website. They have a good presence. So yeah, we're very excited to see a little action at the fairgrounds.
Well, awesome, Ben. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a good weekend, and thank you for helping us to understand what you guys are going through.
Okay, thank you very much, sir.
Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
This week, Sequoia Park Zoo opened its doors for the first time since the pandemic began. Masked visitors took advantage of the access, happy to visit the beloved local landmark and see its animals again up close. Gretchen Ziegler, zoo director, said that the reopening has mostly been a success, but that significant work remains for the zoo to make up financial ground.
We opened to the general public this week, and it's been going pretty well so far. We're having to regroup a little bit to see if we can keep the zoo open, and you know, with the budget that we've got, the whole city is in a budget crisis because of COVID. But we were able to keep all the animals healthy and happy while we were closed, so that was good. The city actually provides about 80% of our operating budget every year, so we're very dependent on the city and the tax subsidy that we get. We offset that about 20% with revenue from admission, but when we're closed, we still have expenses because we've got a living animal collection. So we are in a bit of a budget crisis for sure. Worst case scenario would be that the zoo doesn't survive the budget cut, but that we're not there yet.
This week, Congressman Jared Huffman and others introduced new legislation to help local, state, and federal law enforcement agencies eradicate illegal marijuana farms on public lands and to help fund repairs to property that has been damaged by such operations. The Protecting Lands Against Narcotics Trafficking, or PLANT Act, is the next step for lawmakers after law enforcement officials completed a year-long illegal marijuana eradication effort in 2018. That effort resulted in the seizure of more than 82 firearms, more than 500,000 plants, and over 103,000 pounds of trash, pesticides, and chemicals. Almost 90% of the sites were confirmed to have traces of prohibited pesticides. Huffman said trespass marijuana grows are increasing throughout his district and across the U.S., making forests and other public lands unsafe for work and recreation, threatening endangered wildlife, and contaminating rivers and streams. Local donors and the Humboldt Area Foundation have raised more than $20,000 in emergency funds to help Dreamers through the COVID-19 pandemic. During the month of June, all gifts in support of HSU Dreamers were doubled with a matching $10,000 grant from the Humboldt Area Foundation's COVID-19 Regional Response Fund. Dreamers are undocumented students who have been allowed to stay in the United States through the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program. The Trump administration recently lost an effort in court to close the program down, though that effort is expected to continue. According to Humboldt State, donors responded to the challenge by giving more than $10,000 in initial donations to provide crucial funding for undocumented students. HSU Dreamers do not qualify for federal pandemic support. Like other HSU students, however, Dreamers are in need of financial support to offset loss of wages, secure housing, and meet basic needs. For those interested in continuing to provide emergency support to Dreamers, you can email giving@humboldt.edu. Humboldt County Health official Teresa Frankovich this week described new challenges that the county is facing in its fight against COVID-19. As more local people seek tests, that increased demand combines with the same need elsewhere. This puts a strain on companies like OptumServe, currently testing at Redwood Acres, to produce both the tests and the chemical reagents needed to conduct them. The end result is longer wait times, delayed appointments, and results that can take a week or more.
Well, I would argue that we do have the surveillance capability. It's, people may not be able to get in the week that they want to, but again, their appointment availability is out there 2 weeks from now. But it's certainly correct that, a turnaround time like that reduces our ability to use it even for things like contact investigations, testing contacts who have not had symptoms yet, that type of thing. So it is a big limitation. And as I said, it's a work in progress.
Frankovich also pointed out that while the county has enough contact tracers employed at the moment to meet its needs, a significant exposure event could exponentially complicate matters and make it impossible for the county to keep up.
Well, we've been able to continue to build our teams, and I believe at present we have nearly 60 individuals that are either fully trained or are completing training, getting onboarded to being able to assist with these investigations. However, that being said, what I can tell you is that each case can engender, dozens of contacts, and the work involved in reaching out to not only every case, but to each of their contacts, and then as those individuals become ill, reaching out to their contacts becomes an enormous undertaking. And I would tell you that we're doing fine right now. We are able to manage these cases at our current capacity, and we have room to increase our caseload, but we will never be in a position to be able to manage outbreaks in large-scale events, for instance. An event that is, a couple hundred people, 500 people at a time where an exposure may occur becomes quickly not feasible.
We'll be right back.
On We'll Meet Again.
Campuses were waking up to the women's movement.
It was so exciting. The whole world was about to burst open.
After the rise of the women's rights movement, a search to reunite people who changed each other's lives.
I want to tell her the life I've lived because of her.
Tell me about Emily. Describe her.
She was the only woman pilot doing this job that I had been told women couldn't do. If I could say thank you to her, I'd really like to do that.
So when I saw them, I felt hope.
The story of the Iraq War, told by the civilians who lived it.
And then there was a chaos.
Combat operations in Iraq have ended.
Mission accomplished. But yeah? Seriously?
The memories and experiences from those who survived.
It's very dangerous to forget, because memory all is what's left for us.
Said this week that a number of recently released state prisoners freed because of COVID-19 will soon return to Humboldt County. The county has to bear the cost of housing these parolees for the duration of any quarantine, he said. Outbreaks have been reported at several state prisons. Releasing inmates whose remaining sentences are short is seen as a means of relieving some of that pressure.
So right now, the state has recognized that in their state prison system, there's a lot of people that are having COVID. And so their answer to that is actually releasing people from prison. And I don't necessarily agree with that. I think it's a problem. We're trying to prevent the spread of COVID, and I understand their liability. But to have, to push that problem back on the county without offering us resources or or a place is something that can be problematic. And we were recently notified that certain inmates that have 30 days left on their sentences will be released to Humboldt County, and that's about a dozen people. Initially, we thought it was going to go through state parole, but now it looks like it's going to go through our county probation office to be able to monitor those people. So our county probation and public health are working together to try and find, some temporary housing for those individuals. So things are being set up for that to happen, and I'm happy that coordination is there, but still, it should be for essentially our residents and our homeless and those kind of things. But now the state is pushing off an issue on us in our county. So that's troubling. We have our own county jail to worry about as well. So, and then there's also, we were advised that with inmates that have 180 days or less as a part of a sentence, they also are going to be released to our county. And those numbers are 20 or so inmates from the state prison system will be released into Humboldt County. And our local parole agents, they're kind of in the blind about this too, and they don't know all the stuff that's happening and how these things are going to be processed here. So, so we're trying to work together and trying to, because it's going to happen whether we like it or not. So we're doing our best to try and make sure that we can provide that avenue to house them and keep them away from the public as long as we can.
We're lucky again this week to have a special report filed by Heron TV, a program through North Coast Preparatory Academy that brings young journalists together to report on the news as they see it. This week, they take on a recent Supreme Court decision extending civil rights protections to the trans community.
On June 14th, the U.S. Supreme Court declared that LGBT employees were protected from dismissal under U.S. law, giving a step forward to equality in the workplace. Today, Heron TV is asking local LGBT youth about how this decision impacts their life.
My name is Ari Alter.
My name is Elliot.
Hi, I'm Ruby DeVoe.
My name is Thea Lammers.
What are your thoughts about the recent Supreme Court ruling with the clarification to the Title VII labor law?
As far as a national statement, especially in a time of really big division amongst, different races and also different sexualities, I think it is a big win for the LGBTQ plus community and just for equality in general in our country.
I think it's a really good first step in a direction that we need to go. When legislation reflects culture and it normalizes culture, especially a shift in culture, is something that we really need to be able to move in a better direction.
Do you think that under President Trump's current administration, you feel less safe as an LGBTQ community member, or do you not really think that's changed?
Absolutely. I think he's never really said too much specifically, but through his actions, through having Mike Pence be his vice president, and through some of the policies he's laid out, he has made the LGBTQ community, especially the trans community, feel a lot less safe. And his promotion of hate has led to a culture in our country that is less safe for LGBTQ people.
I'd say yes, as a whole, there is a threat, to the community from the current administration. There are things that cause the community great harm, but also I've kind of seen this incredible kind of coming together around that. So I've seen the kind of community, I think, really uplift and support each other, especially recently. There is just so much going on in the world, but I've seen an incredible amount of solidarity. So while there may be a lot going on in the administration and politically in the world, I think that in local communities and interpersonally, the LGBT community is very strong and very supportive right now.
Have you ever felt that you would be discriminated against as an LGBTQ community member when applying for jobs?
I'm very heteronormative passing, so I have a lot of privilege when it comes to that, because I don't think that someone would look at me and discriminate based on how I pass or how I present. So that is definitely something that affords me a lot of privilege.
So I'm transgender. I was born female, and most of the jobs I apply to, I just don't disclose that ever. It doesn't seem relevant, but also I don't want to, because I know that it could affect the interview process, could affect the hiring process. Once I'm hired, it could affect my relationships with coworkers. So yeah, that's absolutely something I've had to strongly consider.
We'll be right back after this short break.
Our country is home to millions of people. Each one of us is unique, and we're all part of the American story.
PBS American Portrait is a national storytelling project that asks you to submit your individual stories.
Through short videos, photos, the written word, and artwork, you can respond to one of a number of thought-provoking prompts.
Our opportunity to add our rural voice to the story.
Whether you share joy or sorrow, triumph or hardship.
Whether your family is new to this region or your family has lived here forever, your story is important.
For a full list of prompt questions and instructions for submitting your story, go to pbs.org/American Portrait.
The staff at KEET TV can help you record your story.
Please take a moment to submit your story to PBS American Portrait today. Thank you.
This is North Coast Perspectives. I'm James Faulk. Eureka Mayor Susan Seaman this week addresses the rising number of positive COVID cases in Humboldt County and what the community needs to do to protect itself.
For the past 2 weeks, we've started seeing the number of cases of COVID-19 grow daily. This has been very discouraging. It's happening as more businesses are reopening and visitors are starting to come to town. This is undoubtedly the next test of our commitment to keep ourselves, our friends, and families safe. Summer days are crying out to gather for barbecues, camping fun, and even bigger celebrations like weddings and family reunions. Sheltering in place is certainly easier when it's cold and dreary outside, but as our numbers indicate, not much has changed about our situation except the way we've become used to it. Complacency for practicing social distancing and sheltering in place in the face of COVID-19 is a risk too many people are taking, as witnessed in some parts of our country. Purposely not wearing masks in public is downright selfish and dangerous, both in terms of spreading the virus and in creating tension and fear among people in the vicinity. I've often heard those who don't wear masks say that they're pro-business. It simply isn't true. Wearing a mask is the best way to assure we don't have to shutter everything and start all over. Pro-business is pro-mask. And thank you to those business owners and employees who are out there every day working to provide important services in our community. It's because of you that we're able to have a bit of normalcy right now. Having talked with folks who work in the public, it's possible you've been experiencing a heightened level of antagonism and frustration by customers who are stressed and are having difficulty adjusting to the necessary changes most businesses are making. Too often, people have been seen taking that frustration out on those who work with customers. College of the Redwoods has responded to this challenge by creating a series of free de-escalation and assertiveness training classes. These sessions will provide tools to address the situations for retail, hospitality, grocery, government, and child care professionals. You can find more information about these classes at redwoods.edu under Workforce and Community Education. Thank you to CR and others who have been involved in making this program available.
That's all the time we have for now. Thanks for joining us. For information on all things COVID, remember to visit humboldtgov.org for stats and figures on local cases, fresh guidelines, and information on how to best weather the pandemic. Stay tuned, stay informed, and stay healthy.